Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshumanitan Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaye Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Dvapaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tan Mayataya Taravo Benedus Tam Sarvabhutam Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devyam Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshay Kiptasta Kamari Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Papana Vrinde Namaste Charanara Vindam Tave Vasmi Najivami Tvayavina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpa Tarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So we're going to continue with our various readings, and we're going to first offer our most humble, grateful, respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta, Om Vishnu Padasta Tarasat Sri Simad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, and Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta, Om Vishnu Padasta Tarsat Sri Simad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, under our exalted Rupanuga Guru Varga, and all the Sambhu Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis. Okay, so we completed hearing about the Katyani Vrat of the Brajadevis, Brajakumaris, and Krishna subsequently stealing their garments to bestow upon them his greatest gift, his love. After witnessing and experiencing their absolute dedication and surrender to him, he reciprocated fully, and with the promise that very soon, in the coming nights, they will all dance together in the highest expression of loving exchange, Rasa Leela. So, we read Srimad Bhagavatam with Visvanath Cakravarti Thakur. We read Srila Prabhupada's Krishna book. We read Gopal Champu by Sri Jiva Goswami. And we read Ananda Vrindavan Champu by Kavi Kanapur. So now, I was wondering what to read. But because all of these literatures then follow up with the pastime of Krishna meeting with the wives of the mature Brahmanas, and because the philosophical conceptions are overlapping, it's a very beautiful comparison, which serves to actually illuminate the special position of the gopis. Doesn't diminish from the mature Ramanis in any way, because they're aspiring for that same platform. But it does show you some significant and subtle differences in their level of achievement up to that point. So I thought I'd go to the Bhagavatam. It's a fairly long pastime, actually. There's a lot to it, and the Nanda Vrindavan Champu is very long. I haven't looked at Gopal Champu, I don't remember. But I was going to read the Bhagavatam first. So, starting with the end of the previous chapter, even though Shukadeva Goswami jumps in time from that October, November to the summertime, still the mood of the pastime, this is what carried him into this next one. So now we're in summertime. So the young girls of Braj have returned to the village, meditating on Krishna's lotus feet. And then it says, sometime later, Lord Krishna, the son of Devaki, surrounded by his cowherd friends and accompanied by his elder brother Balaram, went a good distance away from Vrindavan herding the cows. Sometimes later, Visvanath Chakravarti Thakur says this means, well, actually, it was summertime. Okay. Then the sun's heat became intense. Lord Krishna saw that the trees were acting as umbrellas by shading him, and thus he spoke as follows to his boyfriends. O Stoka Krishna and Ankshu, O Sridham, Subal, and Arjun, O Vrishabha, O Jashvi, Devaprashta, and Varutapa, just see these greatly fortunate trees, whose lives are completely dedicated to the benefit of others. Even while tolerating the wind, rain, heat, and snow, they protect us from these elements. Visvanath Chakravarti Thakur says, in these verses, Krishna indicates that even trees who are dedicated to the welfare of others are superior to the Brahmanas who are not. Right? So this is a kind of a preface, right? We haven't come to that next chapter, but Shukadeva Goswami, he wasn't speaking in chapters, he was just speaking in sequence. So Krishna's starting out by glorifying the trees, which normally you would think, what's a tree, right? Just a tree. But he's going to, but later on, if a tree in Vrindavan is giving shade, fruits, right, so many other things, while tolerating difficult conditions like wind, rain, heat, and snow, how much superior are they to so-called Brahmanas who are neglecting the opportunity to serve Sri Krishna? So, even trees who are dedicated to the welfare of others are superior to Brahmanas who are not. The cowherd boys, beginning with Stoka Krishna, are situated in the 8 directions with the duty of protecting Krishna. Devaprastha and Varutap are Krishna's umbrella carrier and cleanser of his path, and they're situated in front and behind. The 11th boy, Bhadrasen, is the leader of the cowherd boys. He pays attention to all the details and supervises all the boys. But presently he was situated at a distance. Krishna observed that while tolerating rain and scorching sunshine, the trees would continue to shelter others from rain and heat. So by saying the 11th boy, there's also, there are 12 chief cowherd boys. And in Jaiva Dharma also there's a description of cowherd boys of different ages and different moods, right, who serve Krishna in different ways, and the leaders of all of them. Some of these cowherd boys are leaders of these different groups. So, Krishna continues and says, just see how these trees are maintaining every living entity. Their birth is successful. Their behavior is just like that of great personalities. For anyone who asks anything from a tree never goes away disappointed. Cakravarti Thakur says, the trees were like generous persons. In the verse it says sujana, right? Sujanasyeva yesham vai, who are intent on serving guests. Whoever approaches them to ask for something, Artina, never goes away disappointed. And this reminds us of Mahaprabhu's reference to the tree, the qualities of the tree, right? Tarnad api sunichena taro api suhishtana, right? Humble, tolerant, compassionate. The tree is tolerant, we've heard that, but also compassionate because it's giving whatever it has freely to those in need. Shade, bark, wood for fire, leaves for medicine, or fruits, so many things. Their behavior is just like that of great personalities. For anyone who asks anything from a tree never goes away disappointed. Right. Kings, great kings are like that, right? You come to them and beg, very generous. Brahmanas, always giving. Vaishyas are enjoined in Vedic culture to be generous and charitable to people in need. Shudras, high-quality Shudras, also serving without complaint. So, these trees fulfill one's desire with their leaves, flowers, and fruits, their shade, their roots, their bark and wood, and also with their fragrance, their sap, ashes, pulp, and shoots. Yeah, think about that. All those ways in which trees, this is the design of the Lord, right? Extraordinary. Synergistic relationship. How is it that all these things have come about and these trees exist and offer so many things for the welfare of not just humanity, but other living beings, deer and animals in the forest? Everything is interdependent. It is the duty of every living being to perform welfare activities for the benefit of others with his life, wealth, intelligence, and words. Right. Thus, moving among the trees whose branches were bent low by their abundance of twigs, fruits, flowers, and leaves, Lord Krishna came to the Jamuna River. It's interesting. So this is the idea. This is what Varnashram is supposed to teach, right? It's important not necessarily that those situated in Varnashram are blessed with the highest intentions or the highest realization. They may be on lesser developed stages. But if by following the injunctions, the prescriptions of the duties of everyone within Varnashram, according to their status, they're being trained and regulated in this proper mentality, right, of compassion, of generosity, activities for the benefit of others, right? So that's why Dharma has 4 divisions, right? There's Satyam, which is truth, which means one's, what you could say is one's understanding of one's identity and duty, right? And that has different gradations, Satyam. And then there is, if you take it like a circle, and if Satyam's at the top, directly opposite that down here is ahimsa, which is sometimes called nonviolence, but it also means respect. Because if you are situated in higher levels of Satyam, truth and understanding of one as a spiritual being, then also you're going to see others as spiritual being and you're going to respect them. If you don't see that, still the duties of Varnashram means you have to respect other beings and be nonviolent towards them, right? And then on another side, on these 2 other sides, are Socham, which is cleanliness, purity. So Socham can mean, the duty, the responsibility to maintain a clean body and clean mind, right? So in Vedic culture, you're enjoined, you must bathe every day, right? Bathing every day cleanses the auras, makes the body fit for meditation, for concentration, for contemplation, right? Keeps it healthy, right? It makes it more palatable to be with others in social settings, right? Different degrees of understanding Socham, but really it means, in the higher sense, purity and cleanliness of heart and mind, right? So that one is not aggravated and agitated by impure desires, selfish intentions. And then across from that, on the other side, would be tapasya, which can mean austerity, but it also means discipline, and in one's work, in one's duty. Tapasya means to restrain from doing improper things, and to be properly situated in proper things, nivriti and pravriti, doing what's proper and rejecting that which is improper. And so that is austerity, because the senses and the mind are always trying to do in an unregulated way as much as it can, whenever it can. And so tapasya means to accept appropriate duties, appropriate activities, and refrain from that which is inappropriate. And in the highest sense, nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yukta vairagya uchate, to engage everything in the service of Krishna, and automatically then, and seeing everything in relation to Krishna, automatically you're refraining from inappropriate use of things and inappropriate vision of this world. It's not for my enjoyment, it's for the service of the Lord. So the idea of dharma has different gradations, but basic varnashram dharma regulates and directs the activities in such a way that one is protected from sinful activity, which causes degradation and fall down to lower species, and one, by performing activities in a pious way, regulated way, one gradually becomes elevated in consciousness, in purity, and can ascend to different levels of birth and different levels of understanding one's duty, not just performing pious activities in this world, gradually becoming a jnani, understanding that the real purpose of life is to understand spirit and ultimately leave this material world, and then the different gradations of understanding spiritual perfection. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti, Shabdyate. So, after explaining all this, Krishna and the cowherd boys, they come to the Jamuna River. The cowherd boys let the cows drink the clear, cool, and wholesome water of the Jamuna. O King Parikshit, the cowherd boys themselves also drank that sweet water to their full satisfaction. Then, O King, the cowherd boys began herding the animals in a leisurely way within a small forest along the Jamuna. But soon they became afflicted by hunger and approached Krishna and Balaram, and they spoke as follows. And that's when the next chapter begins, 23, the Brahmanas' wives blessed. So, Sri Gopa Uchahu, the Gopas said, Rama, Rama Mahabaho, Krishna Dushta Nibarhana, Esha Vai Bharate Shunas, Tachchantim Kartamar Hata. The cowherd boys said, O Ram, mighty armed one, O Krishna, chastiser of the wicked, we are being harassed by hunger, and you should do something about it. Visvanath Cakravarti Thakur says, this chapter describes how the cowherd boys were disrespected when begging food from some Brahmanas performing a sacrifice, how Krishna showed mercy to the Brahmanas' wives, and how their husbands felt remorse. The cowherd boys said, the Vedas say that hunger is man's worst enemy. If you can destroy our hunger now, then you will be successful in conquering the enemy. This is the boys' logic. So they're going Ram, Ram, Balaram, and Krishna. Right? There's a saying in English, a hungry man is an angry man. Hunger, it can control you, it can overcome you, it can make you passionate, impatient, angry, right? Disturbed, greatly disturbed. When you become hungry, that's all you can think about, right? Yeah, and you'll do anything to assuage that feeling. Very powerful. That's why Rupa Goswami begins with Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udara Pasta Vegam, right? If one can control speech or the tongue, right, and the pushings and demands of the belly, which also affect the demands of the genital, then one can, and of course in the mind, then one can be considered a self-controlled person worthy of becoming a spiritual master, right? So hunger, it's like a demon, right? Krishna, Ram, you kill so many demons, kill this demon of hunger. So, Sri Shuka Uvacha, Iti Vigyapito Gopayar Bhagavan Devaki Sutta Bhaktaya viprabharyaya prasidandidama brevit. Shukadeva Goswami said, thus, entreated by the cowherd boys, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the son of Devaki, replied as follows, desiring to please certain of his devotees who were Brahmanas' wives. He's, after explaining this verse, the grammar of the verse, he says, Krishna spoke in order to give mercy to the wives of the Brahmanas. Some say that the singular form is used to indicate one particular wife who attained the 10th stage of prema. Out of compassion, Krishna wanted to show her mercy. Prasidan has two meanings, giving mercy and lamenting. So it can be the singular form, meaning all of the Brahmanas' wives, or, as we're going to find out in the latter part of the pastime, there was one very special Brahmana wife, the most qualified of all, who actually achieved what none of the others were able to achieve. So, that is indicated and hinted in this very second verse. Prayata devaya janam brahmana brahmavadina satram angirasam nama yasate swarga kamyaya. Lord Krishna said, please go to the sacrificial arena, where a group of Brahmanas learned in the Vedic injunctions are now performing the Angiras sacrifice to gain promotion to heaven. So, Cakravarti Thakur says, Krishna sent the boys to the Brahmanas to teach them that he does not bestow mercy upon those devoid of bhakti, even though they are endowed with austerity, knowledge, and religious principles. On the other hand, Krishna showed that he does give mercy to those having bhakti, like the Brahmanas' wives, even though they lacked knowledge and austerity. Right, because these particular Brahmanas, you have to understand, taking birth at this time, in the Dwapara Yuga, in this most sacred place of Mathura, they were definitely qualified by previous activities, but they did not have bhakti. But by ordinary consideration, they were very austere, very knowledgeable, they were practicing ordinary religious principles. But as it's explained, that one could be endowed with all these 26 qualities, but if one doesn't have bhakti, there's no use of these qualities for the highest goal. On the other hand, these qualities become ornaments for one who does have bhakti. In the Jaiva Dharma, when Vijay Kumar is reuniting with his nephew, Brahmanath, now that Brahmanath has become a Vaishnava, Vijay Kumar is very pleased with him and says, oh, all of your qualities now, you have wealth, you have great learning, all these, he lists these qualities and said, now these are ornaments for you, because these qualities then are engaged in the service of the Lord. Otherwise, these qualities, one may be very pious and seem to be very good and elevated in the eyes of ordinary society, but it doesn't promote you and doesn't allow you to offer the highest benefit to society. And ultimately, what is their interest as Brahmanas? They want to be elevated to the heavenly planets and enjoy like the demigods. So what's the point? Right? They're just going to continue in that cycle of samsara. Tatra gadvadanam gopa yacha tasmad visarjita kirta yanto bhagavata aryasya mamachabidam. When you go there, my dear cowherd boys, simply request some food. Declare to them the name of my elder brother, the Supreme Lord Balaram, and also my name, and explain that you have been sent by us. Visvanath Cakravarti Thakur explains, Krishna said, you should ask for rice, calling out our names. Though those Brahmanas are supposed to be intelligent, They must be woken from their deep slumber of forgetfulness by calling out our names. You should call out Baladev's name first, because those materialistic Brahmanas will think that Balaram, being a Kshatriya, is a worthy recipient of charity, whereas I, being a mere Vaishya, am certainly unworthy. Even if they give a little, it is acceptable. So, the Brahmanas aren't inclined, but at least perhaps if they hear the holy names, Ram, Krishna, they may become purified, right? They may be woken from their spiritual slumber, their forgetfulness. And if not, perhaps from worldly consideration, knowing that Balaram is a Kshatriya from a very exalted line, Vasudev in Mathura, where they live, then maybe they'll give something. But as for me, I'm just a humble cowherd boy, a Vaishya, that probably won't give for me, is what Krishna says. So, Ityadishta Bhagavata Gatva Yanchantate Tata Kirtan Jaliputa Vipran Dandavat Patita Bhuvi. Thus instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cowherd boys went there and submitted their request. They stood before the Brahmanas with palms joined in supplication, and then fell flat on the ground to offer respect. Purport by Visvanath Cakravarti Thakur. The cowherd boys approached with folded hands to show their humble attitude. Though they fell to the ground, the cowherd boys appeared more effulgent than the Brahmanas, who were standing upon the land of Vrindavan. Right. So they were humble by nature. Devotees are always humble. But they were more glorious in every way but compared to these Brahmanas. And even their own effulgence, which generally in those times Brahmanas seemed to have a natural quality, a glowing quality, effulgence. Their natural aura, being very pure by being situated in the mode of goodness, could be, they could be perceived as brilliant. Not necessarily shining like we would imagine, but still very pleasing to the eye. But the cowherd boys, genuine effulgence, because they're non-different from Sri Krishna. They're Satchit Ananda Vigraha, playing like ordinary cowherd boys. But they're humble, and so showing respect to the Brahmanas, they offer their full Dandavat pranams. He Bhumi Deva Sunuta Krishnasya Desha Karina Praptan Janita Bhadram Vo Gopanno Ramachoditan. The cowherd boy said, "Oh, earthly gods, please hear us. We cowherd boys are executing the orders of Krishna, and we have been sent here by Balaram. We wish all good for you. Please acknowledge our arrival." Purport, the cowherd boy said, "We are executing the order of Krishna, who is more powerful than Balaram because he is the son of King Nanda. Since we have been sent by Baladev, we will give him the first rice that we receive." Gascharayantav avidura odanam Ramachuto lasato bibukshito Tayodvija odanam artitor jadi Shraddha chavo yachata dharma vitama. Lord Ram and Lord Achyuta are tending their cows not far from here. They are hungry and want you to give them some of your food. Therefore, O Brahmanas, O best of the knowers of religion, if you have faith, please give some food to them. All right, the cowherd boys had said, "We're hungry," but actually they were certainly hungry, but they're also even more concerned. If we're hungry, then Krishna and Balaram must also be hungry. So this is why they brought that up. Right? And now they're asking, "Please give us some rice." And the Brahmanas replied, "Because Krishna and Balaram are not Brahmanas, we cannot give you until after the Brahmanas have eaten, because ordinarily in sacrifice there's an order of who gets the remnants at what time, right? And so we're Brahmanas, we have to eat first, and then you lesser persons. And the cowherd boys respond, but Krishna and Balaram are hungry. Of course you know the Vedic injunction, anasya shuditam patram, food should be given to those who are hungry. The cowherd boys, just like the gopis, even though they appear uneducated in the formal way, they are conversant in all the deepest conclusions and subtle conclusions of Vedic literature. And so here they're citing it. Seeing that the Brahmanas are unfavorably inclined and not saying anything, they're just ignoring him, they continued, O Brahmanas, if you have faith in Krishna and Balaram, then give. And if you do not, then say no, and we will go back. Seeing you remaining silent upon hearing our request to feed Krishna and Balaram, the sound of whose names causes the entire universe to melt with love, we can understand that your being twice born merely means being born from two parents. So you're Dvija. Dvija can mean twice born, but in this case, Dvi, two, Ja, born. You have two parents. So the Brahmanas are not even responding, which is such disrespect. When the Brahmanas did not respond to the cowherd boys' initial request, the boys addressed them with a touch of sarcasm. Of course you know the highest principles of religion, so what can we tell you about Dharma and Adharma? The phrase Dharma Vittama, best knowers of Dharma, can also be taken as Dharma Vitamaha, which means the ritualistic Brahmanas were actually totally ignorant of religious principles, right? Vitama means knowers of Dharma, Dharma Vitama, but Dharma V/Tamaha means you don't know, right? Like Deshi means one who lives in India, right? Videshi means one who's a foreigner, right? V, not of that same class. So, Dikshaya Pashasamstaya Shotra Manyascha Sattama Anyatra Dikshitasyapi Nanam Ashnan Hidushyate. Now they're going to continue and they speak, they say, except during the interval between the initiation of the performer of a sacrifice and the actual sacrifice of the animal, O most pure Brahmanas, it is not contaminating for even the initiated to partake of food, at least in sacrifices other than Shotramani. Purport. The cowherd boys anticipated the possible objection of the Brahmanas that they could not give the boys any food because they themselves had not yet eaten, and that a priest initiated to perform a sacrifice should not eat. Therefore, the boys humbly informed the Brahmanas about various technicalities of ritualistic sacrifice. The cowherd boys said, this rule applies from the beginning of the sacrifice until the animal is killed. But after that, there is no fault in taking food. This applies to all sacrifices other than Sotramani, in which none of the food can be eaten. So, the animal had already been killed. And we go, what? They killed the animal? But in those days, how did they kill the animal? What was the intent? They would kill an animal, usually an older horse or cow, but then afterwards they would chant mantras and the animal was revived with a fresh young body. And this would indicate that the mantras chanted during the yajna were chanted properly and that the sacrifice would be effective. Right? So it appears that they're killing an animal, but actually they are, but they are also benefiting it and giving it a new, fresh body. So it's going to die anyway. Everybody's going to die. So if they said to you right now, hey, we're going to sacrifice you, but after that you're going to get a fresh young body, hey, I'd do it. I could use a trade-in. This was, the tires, the internal parts, they're getting all a little old, Anytime this body could break down, a fresh new one, that wouldn't be a bad thing. So it's actually mercy. Iti te bhagavad yachnam shrinvanto pi sushushruvo shudrasya buddhikarmano balesha vridhamanina. The Brahmanas heard this supplication from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, yet they refused to pay heed. Indeed, they were full of petty desires and entangled in elaborate rituals. Though presuming themselves advanced in Vedic learning, they were actually inexperienced fools. So it means they're hearing the supplication because it's Krishna that they're speaking on behalf of, right? So, Cakravarti Thakur purport, though the Brahmanas were knowledgeable of Scripture, why did they not respect Krishna and Balaram? This verse answers the question. Actually, the Brahmanas did not know Scripture. Rather, they were ignorant in realizing and imparting Scripture. Therefore, for 2.5 verses, Shukadeva Goswami ridicules them for being full of petty desires, such as aspiring for the heavenly planets. The Brahmanas thought themselves advanced in knowledge, vridha manina, but actually they were only advanced in age, vridha. The word vridha means wisdom and old age. Right? And we sometimes worship the form of Vridha Shiva, a very old deity, but Lord Shiva, he's like the guru of all. He's got his own sampradaya, great Vaishnav, friend of the Vaishnavs, great devotee of the Lord. So, right, what is real dharma, right? When the sages in Namashranya asked that, what is the highest dharma now in this age of Kali? What is it? Savai pung sang, paro dharmo, jito bhaktir, ahokajay, right? Worship and devotion to the Supreme Lord at Hokshaja. Ohai pratyata, unmotivated, uninterrupted, pure in every way, right? Yayatma suprasidati, that will give pleasure to the Lord, and by that, pleasure to the self, right? Vedaishta savayad aham eva vedyo, Vedanta krid veda videva chaham. Krishna says, I am the goal of the Vedas. I am the knower of the Vedas, right? All Vedic wisdom is in me, but I am the ultimate object of the Vedas. They're so-called Brahmanas, they don't know. Desha kala pritag dravyam mantra tantra dvijogana devata yajamanas kratur dharmas nanmaya tam brahma paramam sakshad bhagavantam adhokshajam manushya drishta dushpragya martyatmano namin menire. Although the ingredients of sacrificial performance, the place, the time, particular paraphernalia, mantras, rituals, priests, fires, demigods, performer, offering, and as yet unseen beneficial results are all simply aspects of his opulences, the Brahmanas saw Lord Krishna as an ordinary human because of their perverted intelligence. They failed to recognize that he is the supreme absolute truth, the directly manifest personality of Godhead, whom the material senses cannot ordinarily perceive. Thus, bewildered by their false identification with the mortal body, they did not show him proper respect. So again, even though this is a later chapter, this is chapter 23 in the 10th canto, once again, after having heard a very intimate pastime with Krishna and the Brajadevis, this immediately follows to establish Krishna's actual position, right? In all these ways described in this verse, the ultimate object and goal of all sacrifice, the Lord, creator of everything, so that this is driven home. And then even though there's going to be again a pastime with beautiful ladies willing to give up everything in the service of the Lord, the understanding and justification and obvious glorification, of that and the reasons for it are given in this verse here. And Visvanath Cakravarti Thakur says, when should a person overlook the rules outlined in Scripture for suitability of place, time, and person, and give his acquired goods to another person? This verse answers the question. Due to their material vision, Martyamana, the Brahmanas thought of Krishna, the Supreme Personality, the Supreme Absolute Truth, as an ordinary human. Although Krishna cannot be perceived by the material senses, he said Hokshaja, he can be realized by mercy. Time, place, and sacrificial offerings, such as cooked rice, and the rituals, the tantra, the mantras, the priests, the fires, the demigods, the sponsors, the sacrifice, and religious principles are all simply aspects of Krishna's opulence. So in other words, Brahmanas, everything that you're doing here, the ingredients that you're offering, the people who sponsored all of this, the mantras you're chanting, all the ritual, everything that you think that you are the lords of and the controllers of, these are all aspects of Krishna's opulence. They're meant to be used for him. And you are deluded and bewildered from that. And then the next verse, when the Brahmanas failed to reply with even a simple yes or no, O chastiser of the enemy, Parikshit, the cowherd boys returned disappointed to Krishna and Ram and reported this to them. So, Visvanath Cakravarti Thakur says, thinking, how can we give to the cowherds before we have eaten? The Brahmanas did not say yes, and they did not reject the proposal to give their remnants after the yajna by saying no. Seeing that Parikshit Maharaj was becoming angry on hearing this, Shukadeva Goswami said, O subduer of enemies, Parantapa, we know that word from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna calls Arjuna Parantapa. If you had been there, even though they were the best of Brahmanas, you would have punished them like enemies. Because Parikshit, when he was king, he upheld Dharma strictly, Paradharma. So we'll stop there, and then they're going to go back to Krishna and tell him what happened, and Krishna's going to laugh and give them new instruction. So we'll start with verse 13 tomorrow. Okay, so offering obeisance to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev, all the Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis, Gaur Premanande.